Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka Blitz, and I'm joined today by my good mate Bini from Legion, the world champion Legion clan. How you going, mate?
Hi there, Bushka. How are you doing?
Very, very well. Now, where are you coming to us from at the moment? Where are you based?
I'm
What's
based
home?
in Copenhagen, so it's like
Copenhagen.
11:45 here.
Mate, you must love Blitz. Are you anywhere near Sensual Chocolate there, the big diesel?
Well, yeah, that depends on how you look at it, but yeah, he's in Groningen in the Netherlands, so it's not too far away.
No, I got in trouble during the stream for saying he was from Amsterdam. A few people got up me about that.
Yeah, that's why I made sure to get it right this time.
So, listen, mate, just to let everyone know, Bini is the mouse man in the Legion tilt. Now, you've been driving the mouse for Legion for how long, mate?
Well, I only joined Legion 3 months ago, and
Yep.
I've played the mouse pretty much since I joined. The mouse and the i7 mainly.
Yep. Now, let me know, if you would, before the tournament series really started up, was the mouse the tank that you drove a lot, or was it just something that you got asked to drive?
Well, actually, I only got the mouse like a couple of weeks, maybe a month before I joined Legion, I think, in game.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just something that, well, I guess no one else was really driving it, so I just thought I'd do it, and it just stuck with me.
Now, you guys, it was quite interesting because there was only a couple of maps where you didn't run big mouses, namely the games you had versus EHR in the first round. You were running around in an IS-7 there. Which tank do you prefer driving?
I don't really care, to be honest. I really like the mouse, though. I mean, it's such a unique tank, the way you have to angle it and make sure you angle the turret as well, and all that, and the tactics you use in the mouse. I really like that. So I guess if I had to pick one, that would be my favorite. But
It really is quite a different one, though, isn't it, mate? Because it seems like the only tank in the game where it actually is a super heavy. Like it really does. You
yeah, I
can make the
mean,
bounces happen.
yeah, the E100 has sort of the same feel to it, but
Mm-hmm.
if you are driving an E100, for instance, and you're going up against IS7s, then the E100 is really good because you can actually bounce shots with the turret face because of the low penetration on the APCR and IS7s. But if you're up against big TDs and stuff like that, then E100 is just the turret face is just butter. So in that case,
Absolutely.
the mouse is just a better tank for. Yeah, if you want a super heavy, you just go with the mouse every single time.
Now, a lot of the teams that we saw in Minsk, and I got to say, mate, it was lovely to meet you in Minsk, and Minsk was an absolute barrel of laughs. Like, it was a hell of an experience for everyone, especially for you guys.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I mean, getting to meet everyone that you've talked to in game and on Discord, and just the atmosphere. It was amazing. I mean, all teams were just so friendly to each other, even though we were competing. So that was really, really cool.
It really does seem to be a thing with esports, particularly more than any sports that I've played in my life, where it feels like you guys are there. And for instance, you've won the European server a couple of times, and you've been to Twister Cup twice now as a clan. And it must be very hard when you're dealing with this. There's not a lot of other people that you can talk to in your day-to-day life who deal with the same kind of things, the training, the strats and all that kind of stuff. So when you get to go to Minsk, you're actually meeting people for once that you can sit down and talk to face who deal with the same problems that you guys deal with day in, day out in game.
Yeah, exactly. And you always have that in common. It was actually quite a fun experience for me meeting. I met Oxbow and Thomas at the airport in Frankfurt when we were going to Minsk. And obviously, we're talking like every day in training, but I've never met any of them. But we just hit it off immediately because you can always just start talking about Blitz and then go from there. And
you don't get to do that with anyone.
yeah, exactly. And like for me, there's obviously the big age difference, as I'm 30 and the next oldest guy on the team is Sten, who just turned 19 in Minsk. So
That's
obviously
crazy.
we are pretty different places in life, but still, you still have that thing in common. So it was just so easy to talk to everyone.
I got to say, Vinny, there was a huge amount of respect from me for, like, you are flying the flag for all us old blokes to actually still be competitive at this level and to be an integral part of the engine room. I was very, very proud of you, mate.
Well, I mean, Blitz is not really a game that requires, lightning reflexes. It's not like Counter-Strike or something where I would
No.
probably already be too old to play competitively anyway. So, I mean,
Peop-
in Blitz, it's more just knowledge of the game and, yeah, team play.
People really miss that about Blitz because it is way more like chess than it is like CS or something like that. It is so much more like a tactical game than people give it credit for.
It really is, and especially at the highest level. I mean, the most important thing is not individual skill, although that's obviously very important as well. But it's just making it click as a team, pushing the timing in pushes and stuff like that, moving as a unit all the time. So yeah, I guess the comparison to chess is pretty accurate.
Let's talk a little bit about that, mate. The whole team thing. You guys, I've got to say, you had a fantastic chemistry as a team, and you could tell the whole time like there was a lot of support throughout the team. Good level of banter and giggle, but you all took it pretty seriously as well, and it was a very nice blend. When you're playing, how do you get in that team? Like, how do you get picked to get in that team? What was it all about? Why did they get you in there? What was it that you bought?
When I joined Legion,
Yeah.
well, I had been in R2K before and was one of the
Yep.
founding members, one of the other top Clan Wars clans on EU.
Yep.
So they had already seen me play there. And then, actually, at the time I joined, a lot of the top players in Legion were kind of inactive or on holidays and stuff. So
Yeah.
that gave me a chance to like prove myself. Um, and then when the top players started coming back and we started training for Twister, I was just lucky enough that they needed a heavy player, I guess, and I
Yep.
fit that.
And you tip the scales what at an even 120 kilos, something like that. You know, you're a big man, you're a lot of bulk about you. They're after you.
I don't know about that.
Well, the thing I also really liked about you guys was the memeing. Like, you were always in danger of someone taking a photo or a video that was made of you guys and immediately turning it into a meme. And I've
Oh
got
yeah.
one of the funniest things I saw the whole time was just a video of Thomas, and it turned into a meme on its own where he's just going, "No memeing, no memeing," and he looks at the camera and then puts his hand up, "No memeing,"
Yeah.
and it's like this horrible affliction. Must be with all the teenagers, mate. They just meme everyone.
Yeah, that became kind of the catchphrase for us throughout the trip, no memeing. And I mean, I've never made a meme in my life, but I had to get on board the meme train. So I've made a couple.
You got on board it pretty solidly, mate. I got to tell you. You have talent, mate. You have talent in a lot of different areas. So you talk about that coming to Legion and everything, but and we also talked about the fraternity of Blitz players at that level.
We are trying to set up, like after Minsk, we're trying to set up some trainings, maybe with Pramo, maybe even with the Russians. But before that, we haven't really had too much of that.
I'm really excited about that too, by the way. That sounds like great fun.
That's going to be great.
If you guys do that, then and I get to commentate it, I could put it up on channel. We can all be famous. It'd be lovely.
Yeah, that could be pretty cool, actually.
I'm looking forward to it. So back to the tournament itself. I did have some questions that I wanted to ask. Now, one of my favorite experiences of the whole thing was jumping on the bus with you boys afterwards and just hearing the breakdown bit by bit, like all the little insider stuff. But obviously, I mean, I can't even remember half of what we talked about, but I remember loving it. And the people at home didn't really get a chance. So why don't we have a little bit of a chat about that, just to break down some of the things that went on there.
Sure. I actually wrote down a few notes because I cannot really remember each game. So let me just get those.
Setting the scene, you guys played C4 in the semi-final round, basically of the winners bracket, after you knocked out EHR, and you came up against each other on Castilla. Now, that was C4's map selection, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to pick maps first in any of our matchups. We played rock, paper, scissors in order to determine who picked first.
That is so crazy. Hey?
Thomas lost every single one of them.
I love doing that because my brother and I do that, and my brother looks at me as we're doing it and he goes, it's going to be a rock slide. It's going to be a rock slide. It's going to be a rock slide. He's just looking at you saying rock, 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 rock. And then he goes and does something else. And it blows me away every time. He always wins.
I played every day with my girlfriend over like chores, like doing the dishes and stuff. So maybe I should have been the one to.
Yeah, what was he doing? You were the experienced campaigner, Bini. You should have been up there.
Yeah.
So that was their choice. But you guys did seem to have a good strat. And one of the things I mentioned to you guys when on that bus was that it didn't look like you'd played particularly badly on those maps. You just got beat pretty soundly. And you said yourself that you just got outplayed.
Well, in the first game, when we were on the south spawn, they just outplayed us. I mean, we had a good initial tactic and we got into the C cap pretty fast. And then we got kind of greedy and I tried to take B as well. And I got completely punished for it. I took a full clip from a T-57 while trying to get out of B.
Yeah, and, I remember that.
Yeah, and NG also took a lot of punishment while capping C. And then, foolishly enough, we stationed me and NG near their spawn, and they all just pushed there. So, yeah, they just outplayed us there. But the second game, I thought we actually did better.
You did. There was one point. Now, as a commentator, I don't have the ability to look at the whole map at all times. I was freaking out because there was a big push through your spawn, and it looked like you guys had suckered them into something. And they just seemed to magically get out of it. And that was the real move that for Skate and I, as we're watching this, we started thinking maybe C4 are just like these Russian cyborgs that are unbeatable. How did that feel to you guys when that happened?
Yeah, we actually caught a couple of them in our spawn where we kind of pincered them. The 268 and an IS-7, I thought it was, and we killed those.
Yeah.
And at that point, we actually had the HP lead by quite a bit. And then we got kind of indecisive. I'd say throughout the tournament, we were always pretty determined in what we wanted to do, but that moment was the one where we just couldn't decide. I mean, some people were screaming that we needed to cap A, which I thought would have been the way to go when we were 3 against 4 at that point. Yeah. And we had like 860 cap points. So I wanted us to just plant ourselves at A and just stay there. And some people wanted us to push on them. And then in the end, we couldn't decide, and they just surrounded us and picked us off.
To give you the overview, guys who aren't watching games or anything or don't remember this in particular, Vladius was on like 5 hit points or something, sitting underneath the B cap, and was a one shot, but he was a fair way away from you guys. And then you've got A cap, which is just to the right of you, and it was this horrible moment where you were right in the middle of 2 really good options, and kind of did neither for 30 seconds. And that seems to be the biggest issue with the losses when you look back on them for all the teams. There's these moments where you've got to make a decision, and it's literally that team chemistry, that complete team hive mind. When it works well, it's beautiful, but when there's any kind of dissension, it can be terrible, even if it doesn't seem like it at the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a bad plan is better than no plan if you just all execute it at the same time.
I've got this thing that I say in videos sometimes. It's like, when you've got no good decisions to make, at least make them fast.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty true, actually.
Yeah. At least if you're doing something quickly, you're doing it, oh man. So that was pretty cool because It was almost like you guys had chucked the game to get the odds up, and then you're going to go and put a couple of quid on yourself at the bookies
Oh
downstairs.
yeah.
And you went through to the finals. You were massive underdogs because C4 had not lost the game all day. And you had to fight more games than them, and they had looked very, very, very composed the entire time. They were laughing, they were giggling. Swarovski was very loose, and that really changed. The body language was something that was massive. If you watch the video, and you can see it points, the difference in the body language from the start of the finals to 2 games in is incredible. You guys just look so relaxed.
Yeah, that's true. Although I have been getting quite a bit of flack over the fact that I didn't look relaxed at any point, even when we
But
won.
that's just how you look.
Yeah, even when we won, I was just putting my serious face on.
You've got that 1,000-yard bitty stare, mate. That's how you ice the opponent.
Exactly.
Like you
I
walk
iced
out.
them for next year.
Exactly. So you kick off. You're in the finals. Legion v C4, big moment, and you lose the map call again. Thomas with a hopeless papers, rock, scissors game. And you get Vineyards. Now, we were talking on stream. Now, the call all Twister season had been that people did not want to play Vineyards. It really was something that people were, like, for the teams that I talked to, they were all pretty negative about Vineyards. But it just seems to be that you guys and C4 were 2 teams that really didn't seem to mind Vineyards. Is that the case?
Well, we hadn't actually talked too much about that before the tournament. I mean, it wasn't one of our favorite maps for sure. It wasn't like we were going to pick it at any point. But
what were your favorite maps?
we actually wanted to play Goldville throughout the tournament, but we never got to play it because when
we never saw it once.
Yeah, when we picked second, I mean, I thought we actually picked it both against EHR and Premo, but we won 2-0 against both, so we never got to play Goldville. And then in the final, I think C4 vetoed it.
I mean, that is a hell of a testament. You guys went through and won 3 out of 4 rounds, and you never got to pick your own map once. So you were playing basically the strongest map strats from the other teams every time.
Yeah, it's quite a big disadvantage when it's only best of 3. I mean, in the finals, it's not such a big deal. And in the finals, we also felt like we got a lot of maps we actually were pretty good on. So,
well, you certainly seem to be pretty good on them.
Oh, yeah.
You won 4-1. So back to talk us through what the game plan was for you guys when you kicked off on Vineyards.
So actually, all our tactics were prepared beforehand from home, and we only had time to like prepare one tactic from each side, which actually was pretty risky considering there was a chance to play map several times. We saw that on Castilla. And actually,
yeah, absolutely.
It was pretty funny because by coincidence, Castilla was the only map where we had 2 solid tactics on each side. But on Vineyards, we had done a tactic versus First Alliance in the final game of the EU finals from the South Spawn, and that was the one we had going into this tournament as well. But in the final minute, we actually changed it because we didn't really feel comfortable with it. So that was the only time we actually just made a tactic on the fly.
So you made a tactic up on the fly?
Yeah, from the South Spawn, which was actually lucky because I talked to Swarovski after the tournament, and he told me that they actually picked Vineyards because they weren't too impressed with our tactic against First Alliance. So they had studied the video. Yeah.
Because that is traditionally the weak spawn for Vineyards, that South Spawn. Well, at least in as much as it can have a weak spawn. And they did some weird stuff that I wasn't expecting. And I guess that may well have been because they saw your original tactic. Like, if you've watched the map again, which I know you have, when they start off, they load 3 guys up at the bridge just under the north spawn there, looking dead across towards B.
Yeah, that was pretty strange. I mean, maybe it's a Russian metagame thing where people try to cap B, but we were never going to try to cap B, so I don't know what they were trying to.
It's like the death cap, isn't it?
Well, every single cap on Vineyards is a death cap, pretty much. I mean, it's so difficult to get a cap.
Were you surprised when you saw on the playback that they actually capped A with a grill?
Yeah, that was pretty surprising and pretty ballsy too, I gotta say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, they got the cap, and at that point, we needed to do something because we couldn't just sit there. And we actually managed, even before we made the push, we managed to kind of like squeeze them into a corner.
Yeah, that was a big surprise for me that you got them so smoothly, like down into their own kind of territory. You guys had all the width in that game.
Yeah, we really did. We had Gangdorf in the Broken City up at the northwest, and then we had me and Thomas in the city to the southeast. So we had them pretty cornered there, and we could shoot them from multiple angles. And that's when Thomas decided that we needed to just push in at that point.
When we're watching that now, let's talk a little bit more here about the mouse, because this is the map where, I mean, you had some great play in the mouse on this one. You were in C. I think Pingva was opposite you in C, and there's this great moment where we're watching, and instead of going into the C cap, I mean, we don't hear these things because we're only watching the game itself. And you guys are obviously not playing for the cap. You can just see you drive straight through that C cap down into Statist with Pingva on your right. And it was one of those lovely moments in sport for Skate and I. Talk me through that move from your perspective.
Yeah, it might surprise you to hear that I actually only pinned like one shot in that game.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It looks like so glorious. You just drive down into Statist and smack him with a bit of a ram for like nearly 200, and then it's all on.
Yeah, but that's the point I wanted to make, because the mouse is good for two things. It can either be like an anchor tank that you just place on one flank, and then if the enemy pushes into it, you're already in a good spot, because either you have time to come and help, or you have time to like push on another flank while they're busy killing the mouse. So that's one use for it, and that's actually how we kind of employed it in the beginning of the game, where I was just sitting on the edge of the town. And then the other use of the mouse is just to push in, and Thomas usually tells me you just have to go in and die. That's basically what you got to do, because you're just such a big target. You have so much HP, so much armor, that if you can get the enemies to shoot at you, you're already winning almost. Because then they're not shooting at your teammates. So even though I hardly didn't do any damage, I still played my part, because they were actually focusing me instead of the rest of the team. And the girls in the back were getting lit up.
That's exactly right. There's a key bit there where you're on just under 300 HP, and you bounce a couple of shots, and at the same time, Blas and Thomas and Oxbow are all pumping up through that flank around C, and they're not getting touched. Pingva, I think it is, and it might even be 7 minutes in the grill or something, are at the back, and they're all trying to get you and clear you, and they just can't get the shot. They just can't clear you. You're angling, you're giggling, you're jiggling. It was fantastic to watch. It was like this last stand, just come at me, bro. It was wonderful.
Well, yeah, they got me at the end, but at that point, I think we were like 4,000 HP up on them.
Yeah, you were. By that point, it was done.
Yeah, but I don't know how much of it was the mouse thing. I think we just got a really advantageous position on them, just surrounding them completely. And then, of course, they should not be focusing a mouse if they have any other targets, because the mouse should always be a low priority target if you can avoid it, because it doesn't really have good DPM and it has massive amounts of HP and armor.
I mean, that's a lovely thing to hear. The way you guys talk about the game and the way you pick your targets. Is there anyone that particularly picks a target or calls a focus fire, or are you free to engage as you will?
Thomas calls most of the time, not always, but Thomas calls pushes and stuff. But when we are focus firing, we can all call targets. It depends on who's where, because Thomas cannot not always see everything that's going on the map. So
you guys actually seem to talk. Yeah, you guys seem to talk a little more than most of the teams that I've seen.
Yeah, we play better when we talk more. That's for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes in trainings we have trouble with communication, but in tournaments I think we got it figured out, and
I think you do.
it's a balancing act because you don't want to talk too much. You don't want to clutter up the communications. You want to only talk when it's necessary. But if
And
anyone on the team can call out a target.
is there anyone that you ever need to tell to shut up?
Yes, I won't say who, but
We won't say who.
it's
I
actually
can tell
quite
the one.
funny because the tone in our trainings can be pretty toxic at times. Um, but I mean, there are no hard feelings after the training, and we are all pretty good friends. But it's just in the middle of the fight. I mean, heated exchanges can be had on a daily basis. But in
Do you think that's a
tournaments,
positive?
well, I don't know if it's a positive. It's just a function of us all being super competitive, I think.
Yeah.
But the main
Yeah.
thing is that we can just brush it off
Yeah.
and pretend it didn't happen. And when it comes time to play the important games that went both for the EU finals and for the World finals here, there's no arguing whatsoever. We're just focused on the task at hand, and that's really great. I mean, we have an ability to just um, stop any any fighting or any arguing when it matters the most.
Now the second game you guys had on Vineyards, I feel that like that was even a more straightforward win, but you were probably part of one of the most intense moments of that whole battle
Oh
when
yeah,
I think it was Diesel was in the spawn in the 268. He pumped 7 minutes. It was in the M48, and then you got stuck in a 2-on-1 with 7 minutes and Statist down the bottom under the cap. Talk us through that one.
yeah. Well, most of my game had been pretty quiet. I was just charged with securing the right flank, and there were several points where I wanted to peek on their IS-7, but their grill was unspotted for most of the game. He turned out to be in the
Yeah.
city, but I didn't know where he was, and I was afraid
Wolf
he
Pinchar.
was.
Yeah, I was calling that on the. Did you hear that on the commentary? I'm like, they can't see him. What is he
Yeah, I
doing?
did.
He's just
I was afraid he was going to be in the ruins, so I didn't want
yeah.
to peek at all. So most of the game I was just chilling there. But then when they started pushing on Thomas, I had to go do something. So I wanted to go and distract their I7. And as I push on him, the pattern comes over the little ridge, and it's 2-on-1. And yeah, got I got destroyed before just a millisecond before I had a shot
Oh,
on the pattern. And
watching that.
yeah, the thing is, I mean, it was a good blocking attempt by them, but that's not actually what kept me from killing him because at the moment I reloaded, he was actually out in the open, and I had a shot on him. It was just a millisecond too late.
It was so close.
Yeah, it really was. But then a split second after I got killed, Diesel came over the hill and finished off the pattern.
And I think Angie took someone out pretty much at the same time as well. Yeah, he did. He took out Vladius. But that was crazy because when we were watching that, things were all pretty even there. And then you went down, and for a split second, it was like 5-on-5 or 5-on-4, and it was looking like C4 were going to get it done, and it was bang, bang, and it was all over. And they didn't manage to win a map on the map that they picked, which must have been a huge consternation for them.
Yeah, that was great for us because obviously then we can go in 2-0 into our own map. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, we were pretty comfortable on Vineyards, I'd say. And of course, we were lucky not to do the tactic that they had prepared for from the south spawn.
How much of that is just, I mean, luck has to play a part, but you're making these decisions. Like luck is always, when opportunity meets effort. You guys have put all the effort in. You're thinking through. and you decide to change it up, but it's a good move, and it's a good move because tactically you're thinking about this. But how much of this is the roll of the dice, the small stuff in the margins, the little one-on-ones like that move with Statis?
Um, it can play a really, really huge part. I mean, a single bounce early in the game can mean the difference between winning and losing at the end. When the margins are so close, these things matter a great deal, of course. But overall, I'd say that the team play and the tactics play a larger role. I'd say that probably C4 are more skilled than us individually, and therefore might bounce fewer shots. So the fact that we won is a testament to our superior tactics, I'd say, and superior team play.
How do you come up with the tactics? Is that something that you all have a voice in?
Oh yeah, I mean Thomas has the final say always, but we can all make suggestions. I mean, for instance, when we played EHR on Canal, the first game that got reset 2 times,
Yeah.
we had a set tactic, and they had a set tactic, and they didn't change it up. So I suggested to Thomas the third time around that instead of me having C with him, as we had done the previous 2 times, I would go around to D with the rest of them, and we'd just push them. And then, of course, Thomas has to accept that idea, which he did. So, I mean, we can all make suggestions, and we can also make entire tactics. For instance, the mouse tactic on Mayan Ruins, which I'm sure we'll get back to. That was Oxbo's original idea, and then we fine-tune it together.
It was pretty cool, actually. If we want to talk about that Mayan Ruins game now, for me as a guy who does so much Blitz, to see a final for the championship and you guys are running 4 mouses, that was a hell of a thing.
Yeah, it was. It was a very map-specific thing. It was funny. I also think Skate said this in the stream. He was complaining to us in an interview before the tournament that there weren't enough mouses, and we just told him to wait and see. But it's a thing. It's a very map specific thing because it's very hard to punish it on Mayan Ruins. The thing is, when we use 4 or 5 mouses, I think we had one E100 in the mix there, but it might as well have been a mouse.
Yeah.
They know we're going to go to A. I mean, there's no other way we can go. But we also have 2 bat chats, so they cannot just send a medium into C.
Yeah.
And if they send anything into C, which they did in the first game, we immediately just push in. And that's what we did. We just went all in on the push when we saw that they had tanks at C. Because the bat chats are so fast at rotating that we can have every tank pushing on them at once.
Before they buffed the bat chat again, like, I mean, I was pretty much up in arms about the fact that they didn't give it on the move camo. And a lot of people were. And when they finally gave it that, was that what tipped it over for you guys to use it a lot more in tournaments?
I'm not sure. I mean, we weren't using it that much beforehand, so maybe, but I think we already had this tactic on Mayan Ruins prepared even before they buffed the bat chat. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I think it'll see a lot more play now, also because the heat got buffed
so ridiculously strong.
On all tanks, but the mediums use heat, so they're back into the meta now, I think.
What about, mate? Just did you realize? I think that's the first time I've ever seen, and I've done a lot of Twister Cup commentary and a lot of commentary just for live streams and things. I've never seen a team win without a Russian tank before.
Oh, I haven't actually thought about that, but yeah, that's pretty.
You guys did not have a single Russian tank, and C4 ran 2 IS7s, but everything else was, French, German, American.
That's pretty cool, actually. I mean, we almost never play without any IS7s, I'd say. So.
Do would you say that is the staple tank? Like that is the most solid tank in Blitz at the moment?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the recent patch, they made a patch 3 days before the tournament, which was pretty. Yeah,
We haven't talked about that, have we?
yeah, but
do you want to talk a little bit about that? Do you want to say that to say why that was upsetting to?
it's upsetting because we have all our tactics mapped out, and then of course the metagame completely shifts. I mean, it didn't completely shift. We still stuck to pretty much what we already had, but I mean, for instance, the i7, which was definitely the stable tank, it got nerfed relatively because it doesn't have heat. It has pretty low penetration APCR, and every tank that uses heat has a lot more penetration than the i7 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also heavy tanks are now relatively weaker than they were before compared to mediums.
Yeah.
Because mediums use heat, and also because the spotting, the view range of the heavies with optics got nerfed. So yeah, that threw us off a little bit. I mean, there were some tanks that we really wanted to use, like the pattern, and we threw in a few patterns. I mean, we had 2 of them on Canal.
On EHR's game, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I'd say probably the mouse got a little bit weaker, also because it uses the PCR, and because so many tanks have like 370 pen on their heat now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which can just chew through a mouse.
We saw a Jag Panzer 100 for the first time I can remember in tournament play.
It has
on that map.
It has 460 pen on its heat now with calibrated shells, which is just ridiculous.
That's the crazy. People probably don't realize this, but what Bini's talking about is the change to calibrated shells, which means you can run calibrated shells and it gives plus 5% to AP and APCR and plus 10% to HE and heat, which means the Jag Panzer 100, that can now go through the turret of an IS-7. That's correct?
Yeah, it definitely can. Just
crazy.
Just point anywhere and just shoot, and probably.
So back to that map, you guys are running mouses.
Yeah, it was actually quite interesting because what made us pick Mayan Ruins was that we had a training with the C4 on Thursday. It was, I mean, we kind of had to train with the other teams, even though it's kind of weird because you don't want to reveal your tactics and stuff. So we were not using real tactics, but what we did notice was that every time we used mouses, they had difficulties penning them.
Yeah.
And we already had this mouse tactic prepared for Mayan Ruins. And so that's when we knew, actually, after having played them in training, that's when we knew that we wanted to pick Mayan Ruins for our map.
And it was probably the greatest mouse game in the history of World of Tanks Blitz.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, that you can see in the game, you're in a mouse and you've pushed all the way down through nearly into their spawn, and you've got an E4, a Jag Panzer E100, an IS-7, they're all around you, and you guys are just like soaking up so much damage. Do you ever consider running because I think Blast runs the hit points instead of the armor. Is that a tactical thing for you guys?
I think me and Diesel used the armor, and the other 2 mouses on that map used the HP. I don't know. I think it's pretty close. They also changed it with the new patch, so now it's 6% extra HP and only 4% armor if you choose that. So maybe that tipped the scales a little bit. I don't know. I just like the security of having a bit of extra armor.
Of not getting hit.
Yeah, if you want to get technical about it, I think maybe if you take the HP, it amounts to like them having to use 1 extra shot to kill you, maybe once every 3rd game, something like that. So if you get an extra bounce using the armor, if you get an extra bounce once every 3rd game, then it might be worth it. That's the way I look at it. So I use the armor on the mouse.
Now, obviously, it was a great strat. It came down to, and C4 seemed at one point to have the upper hand, and it came down to a one-on-one between Thomas, aka Dictator. Is he changing his name back to Thomas, or is he just sticking with Dictator?
Yeah, it's actually pretty confusing because everyone is
Yeah.
calling him Thomas, and he changed his name to Dictator in game.
Well, everyone who knows him was calling him Thomas, and everyone who's probably watching Twisted Cup for the first time is going, "Where's this Thomas guy?"
Yeah.
Versus Vladius at the end. There's a bit of a backstory to that, isn't there? Because Thomas does a lot of this one-on-one with you guys before games.
Oh, not only before games, he just likes to challenge people to one-on-ones, just friendly one-on-ones. And he usually doesn't really care about winning or losing. And he gets bullied quite a bit on the European server because people see him as a great leader and a great tactician, but not necessarily a great individual player. And well, I guess he proved people wrong there.
Didn't he ever? Didn't he ever? He did fantastically well. I mean, he's up against Vladius, who is known as a hell of an individual player. And he managed to pull the win out. And he looked so totally focused and locked in when he was doing it. But everyone else around him, have you seen that? That was fantastic. Like, you guys are just... you can't do anything. It must be one of the worst things in the world to just be watching this.
I haven't watched any footage of it, but I remember being there, and I remember Gandalf just screaming every time Thomas penned a shot, and I was trying to calm everyone down and just let him play.
Just settle down, fellas. They're a hard bunch of humans to calm down, Benny. They're very active.
Oh, yeah.
You might have to tackle them to get them to sit down at times. Sten looked like he wanted to grab the iPad off him.
I don't think that would have been legal.
No, it might not have worked. So that was absolutely a massive moment for the game too, because when you're playing these games, you guys want to win. But for me as well, there's the whole overview of the game in the context of presenting it in its best light. And the finals and some of the games you guys had that day, particularly with Gandalf and his massive pressure cooker versus Folman, and then Thomas doing this. It was brilliant for Blitz as a game.
Yeah, those are the moments you remember. I mean, everyone's going to remember that 1v1 with Thomas, and also the Gandalf moment. I mean, the Gandalf thing was so exciting, whereas Thomas's 1v1 was just, of course, more skillful, I'd say, because... Yeah, I mean... of course, there were also mistakes made there, and in general, in that game, we made a lot of mistakes, I'd say, but we pulled it through at the end, especially thanks to that incredible play at the end.
Well, it was a real, like, you forced them to go through so many hit points to get there in the end. Like,
but if you notice, we also don't focus fire very well in that game. The bat chats when we were pushing, they were going right into the AMX, and then a couple of IS-7s showed up and just completely pummeled them. And also NG went right, and me and Blasty went straight to kill the TD. So there was no focus fire; it was just chaos all over the place.
It was. I think in the stream we were talking in the commentary that it had turned into like this massive Roman brawl kind of thing where everyone's just... it was like everyone just squared off and was punching the guy in front of them from both teams. It was madness.
Yeah, it was kind of like 3 or 4 battles in one. I mean, there was no cohesion at all from any of the teams. It was just a massive brawl.
And that ability to be in a brawl like that in a mouse is pretty important too, because if you start turning into a thing where they've got to penetrate the mouse all the time and get through those hit points, it just got you guys across the line. But it was obviously, even when you've made the mistakes, it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make, the mouse still has that armor and those hit points. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tough proposition. So you went from there. The next game was the first loss you guys had in the finals. But before that game, I really thought it was interesting that the guys from C4 all tournament had been very, very loose. Very loose. And yet that next game... they were huddled up beforehand. There was a lot of pressure, it all went from being on the pressure on you guys to the pressure was so much on them. They really felt it, and they did manage to pull a win out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they even took we had one permitted 5-minute break throughout the tournament. You could take a 5-minute break once, and they used their 5-minute break before the fourth game.
Yeah.
But I actually talked to Swarovski afterwards, and he said that it was the tournament management who suggested it to them. They didn't actually want that break themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, that game. I mean, we did the same thing, which might have been a bit foolish. I don't know, but we were banking on the fact that even if you know what we're doing, it's still very, very difficult to counter. And obviously, it became a very close game as well.
Oh my God, did it ever? It was great.
But it's funny to think back on because everyone is saying that the mouse is the signature tank of the finals, and I guess it is, especially because of that Mayan Ruins, those Mayan Ruins games. But when you think about it, those were actually the closest games. We lost one and we barely won one, and the rest of the games where we didn't use 4 mouses were actually the ones that we won the most comfortably.
I got to say though, Biddy, one of my favourite moments of the whole tournament, and it's not that spectacular, but it's when you guys are winning the last game and there's this big all-in brawl going on at the A-cap on Himmelsdorf, and people are going left and right, and there's some tanks on low hit points. And then you just see, like, you're thinking maybe they can bring it back, and then you see this mouse just trundle into screen, and it's 2,500 hit points left, and it's like, hi guys, I'm here. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, at that point it was just, there was no way they were going to win it. But the thing is, what actually won us that game was the guys holding at A, especially Oxbow and Gandalf. I don't know how they managed to survive that long. I mean, by the time I got in there, I think I did 3.3k damage in that game or something. But that was...
I hope you told Sten how much damage you did, because I know he's very, very keen to let everyone know how high his average damage is.
Oh yeah, he actually calculated his average damage for the EU
He
finals.
did it. He didn't do it. Yeah, he did too. Oh man, God bless him.
But yeah, I mean, that's a sort of game where you can tell that it doesn't really matter who does the most damage, because I didn't really do anything. I just rolled in there and just started firing. And the guys who won us that game were the guys holding at A, because we started off with 2 mouses holding off at D. And I guess we had gotten into their heads a little bit at that point, because rather than just doing their own thing, they tried to do a counter tactic. They had 4 TDs and they were waiting for us to push at D. And I guess it was because we had pushed so hard on Minds with the mouses. But the tactic that we used on Himmelsdorf was completely different. We wanted the mouses to just hold at D, and then we wanted the rest of the tanks to be free to move around.
Yeah, to be fair, mate, I mean, I think the best play you guys did all day was that A-cap fight on Himmelsdorf. If you watch it back, and if this is for you guys out there who are listening to this, if you want to see fantastic team heavy tanking, swapping hit points, I mean, in a really close, tight environment, it's going to be very hard to find a better example of it than that cap fight there. Gangdarf in the IS7.
Oh yeah, I try to notice how long he survives with almost no HP. It's actually quite amazing. I don't know how he did that. But the thing is, I heard you describe it as a brilliant tactical move when we moved into A, but actually it almost cost us dearly because we had our mouses stuck on the other side of the map. And as I said earlier, the mouse is good for 2 things. Either it can hold a flank or it can lead a push. And here it was in the back of the push.
Yeah, NG's all the way on the other side.
Yeah, actually we were told to push through D, but I decided that I would not be able to make it, so I just went straight to A instead. And NG went a little bit further, and then he just turned as well, and we tried to get to A as fast as possible.
The reason it looks amazing if you're watching it as a novice like me is C4 have been holding. Now they ran this really odd strat where it was basically designed great if you were dealing with a team that was willing to just, put themselves in massive, horrible risk, like a trap strat at the start. And you guys just didn't fall into
Yeah,
it.
exactly. That's what I mean when I say that we kind of got into their heads a little bit, because when they start doing tactics to try and counter what we're doing, then we're already in a
Yeah.
good position. And as it turned out, those 3 E4s and the grill, they weren't really the optimal choice when we weren't pushing in like that. And even if we had pushed in on D, I'm not sure that's the tanks I would have picked for them. But they seemed to believe it was going to work. So
Well, the thing that looked amazing for me was they sat and they sat and they sat and they never moved. And then they finally started moving. And it was almost choreographed how beautifully you guys then covered that. Like, as they were going there in a grill, no less, you can see Gangdarf and that just, now was it an Oxbow? They just bail. Like, Statiste is the only one spotted on the whole map, and he's in an IS-7 behind D. And Gangdarf and Oxbow just both bail at the same time and go straight to
yeah,
A,
we wanted to
unspotted,
cap A,
as
but
they're
if
going.
we had known that they had all gone to A, we probably would have done something different.
Well, you put yourself in a tough spot, and the boys played through it beautifully. There's this wonderful moment where Gangdarf's on about 5 hit points, and Ox comes up and Blast is behind him, and he backs down behind a railway car, and they can't hit him, and then Diesel comes storming in the 268, and they blow up Sharovsky, and then they come back out, and it's like, oh my god, this is like
Yeah,
ballet. It's just,
and then
it's
and then
beautiful.
the big fat man comes in and tries to dance.
Then the pie-eating Bini comes rolling
Yeah, and
on in.
I was just telling
Hello!
Thomas, because Thomas was kind of blocking the way. I was just telling him to back up, to just let me in. Yeah,
Let me in.
because I was in full HP, obviously, and just yeah. At that point, there's no way they're gonna get through 2 full HP mouses.
I mean, running a grill on, they made some very, very ballsy tank choices. Like, I feel, do you think that is just part of their makeup as a clan? They have these very, very fine strats that don't possibly hold through everything. Like, they've got these brilliant strats, but they're very, very precise and balanced. And running grills on a game in a game like Himmelsdorf seems really tough to run it well.
Yeah, it's hard to tell why that is. I mean, I don't think I would never have made that choice. I don't know what they were thinking with the grill, but they obviously like using it on a lot of different maps. But
I mean, it's worked well for them over the years. Obviously, they've done pretty well. And to be fair, this is probably the first time we've seen anyone outside of Russia win a major tanking tournament, be it in PC or Blitz. Like, it's a big call.
yeah, that's actually quite amazing when you think about it. Um, I hadn't really thought about it that way.
I had, mate, because they were red hot favourites for a reason. And I mean, Ulf Punjab, a lot of guys in the stream might not know this, but apparently he's like some grandmaster chess
Oh,
kid
nice.
monster, world ranked, and he's off to Paris or something for the world championships and that. And yet you guys played some very rugged strats. You seem to deal with, you seem to adapt better than anyone else in the competition when the going really got tough. Is there anything you can attribute that to? Tank selection, just more time in the seat, better chemistry? What do you think it is?
It's really, really hard to tell. I mean, part of it can just be the fact that we got a really, really good start to the finals. I mean, and then you
Yeah.
just get a boost from that, and then we just rolled with it. It's hard to tell if it would have gone the same way if we had played again. I mean, these things have their own life, kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, and you saw how, I wouldn't say easily, but how convincingly they beat us on Castilla. So it was not really like we
Yeah.
weren't trying there either. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you
It
shouldn't read
really
too much
is.
into the fact that it was 4-1. I mean, they are a fantastic team.
Oh, God,
So
no. Absolutely not. I mean, not considering one of those fights was like Thomas versus Vladius, and it could have gone either way. And if that happens, then it could well have been 2-2 coming into
yeah,
Himmelsdorf,
definitely.
which is a completely different kettle of fish. And you get a lot. I mean, one of the things I did love throughout the comp, though, was there was none of that arrogance. You didn't get any of that arrogance, really. I didn't get that vibe from any of the teams. Maybe from some of the, the supporters and things, but the teams themselves, they all seem to realize that it's quite hard to win.
Yeah,
It's
there
not
was no
easy.
arrogance at all from anyone, and we obviously we couldn't really talk too much to the Asians or the Russians, but they both had players who spoke English, and we were talking to them and during the media day, and everyone was really friendly, and there was no animosity at all, and no arrogance. And even after the
No.
finals, they came up and shook our hands, and we thought that was a really nice gesture for them.
Yeah. I thought so too. There's a lot of sportsmanship shown because it must have been hurting for those guys to lose on their own
Definitely,
turf. And they
I
were,
mean, I knew it
yeah.
was a big game in Russia, but after having seen how many people actually watched the stream, and I think
Yeah.
the Russian video now has like 140,000 views. So
Yeah. There's a lot of humans
it's
that watch it.
massive in
They love
Russia,
it.
and of course, it's a big disappointment for them. Everyone expected them to win, um, but they took it really
Now,
well.
the most
And
important question,
afterwards,
they did.
at the after party, they came up and talked to us, and I talked to Vladius for quite a while, and he had one of the other players with him. I don't remember which one, and he acted as a
I think
translator.
it might have been
No, it
Pingvar,
wasn't
maybe.
Pingwa. Pingwa actually speaks some English as well, but I talked to
Yeah.
them
With Punjab.
quite a lot. I think
Yeah.
I don't remember which one, but they were
Yeah.
so friendly. And Gladius, he's just such a great guy.
He's hilarious. He is freaking hilarious, dude. He is one of the funniest people I've ever met. I had some great conversations with him because, he loves waxing lyrical. But look, the most important question everyone wants to know is what happened to that giant check?
Oh yeah, well, actually that's a bit of a long story. Me and Gandalf went to the airport, and Gandalf wanted to take it with him home, and then they told him that he had to check it in at the airport. But Wargaming had only given him the cheapest tickets, so he didn't have paid luggage, and he was too cheap
Oh,
to pay the 40 euros that it would cost to bring it with him back home.
man, I would have paid the 40
Yeah.
euros. That would have been awesome. A little bit of Blitz memorabilia. Oh, my goodness gracious me. And I was lucky enough to pick up a Legion shirt. I don't know if you saw that. I was
Oh
very
yeah, I was
excited
there.
about that.
It actually came at a quite a tragic background because one of our sponsors, Mike or God, as he's called in the EU,
Yep.
he died just shortly before the tournament, and the shirt was meant for him. And then after the tournament, we didn't really know what to do with it. We thought about maybe making some sort of giveaway, but the problem is a
Yep.
very very big shirt, so not a lot of people would fit
Yes.
into it. And then we were at the hotel lobby and we spotted you, and we were like, I think there's one guy who might be able to fit into this.
Let's talk a little bit about that. You guys were a bit blessed to have a sponsor like that. Mike was pretty awesome. He spent a lot of time pumping up Blitz and giving people a hand on the European server. Do you want to mention a few of the things that, a little bit
Oh
about
yeah,
him?
definitely. I mean, I didn't know him that well, but I know has been a huge support for Legion for a very very long time. And for instance, when the bat chat came out and we wanted to get our hands on it as fast as possible to test out if it was any good, he was the one who provided the gold for us to just free XP it. And he did a lot
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. And he also sponsored our shirts for Twister. And
You did. You guys. I mean, you guys looked really, really good because he sponsored you,
yeah,
basically. There was no way you guys looked amazing. Your swag
We
was
definitely
top end.
won on style points, I'd say that.
Yes. Gangdalf was peaking. We were on the way back from the airport after getting into Minsk, and he was sitting there in the lobby, and I'm like, "You all right, mate?" And he's like, I just need them to turn up with my shirt. I'm really excited. Like, I think we're going to look really, really good." It's really.
I'm a bit sad that I got my t-shirt a few sizes too big, but I just have to bulk up now, I guess.
Yeah, no, you'll just have to get on the massive weights. Don't skip leg day, but do a lot of upper body. Right, mate. Well, that's over an hour. These things always go on and on. Bini, anything you want to say before we finish up?
One very important thing to say, and that's that we were only allowed to take 7 people with us to Minsk, which I can understand for economic reasons and stuff like that. But in the EU tournament, we had more players playing that unfortunately were not able to go, and that's mainly J6R and Eggy from the clan. And want to give a huge shout out to those two, because they helped us qualify and they helped us train a lot, even though they weren't going to Minsk themselves.
Oh, mate, that's pretty tough, and you're dead on. We really are at the infancy stages of Blitz as an esports thing here, and this is kind of the coming of age stuff. But I think things like that, things like getting the leg up because you've got a good sponsor and all that kind of stuff, it just goes to show that it is a bit of a tough road. And I mean, you only have to look at Promo. They got in all kinds of strife and had to pick up players along the way. I mean, at one point, I think they were even looking at Skate or me as an option. They were that desperate.
I would have picked Skate. No offense, but
you grub. Yeah, fair enough. All right, and then this, so we'll never be putting this podcast out. No worries. Okay, Bini, you're a champion. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for chatting, and it was lovely to meet you and all the boys in Minsk. And thanks for having me be a part of it too. Grab me, chucking me on the bus and all that kind of thing. Highlights.
Yeah, definitely for us as well. And thanks for having me. And it was just a great experience, and I hope we'll get more of that in the future.
Absolutely, mate. Now, everyone else who's listening, there's going to be more coming up. We've got lots of humans coming along to have a chat about Twister Cup, about tanking in general, and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully, Bini, we end up getting a bit of a scrimmage going with you guys and Pramo or C4, and I get to start posting some of those videos up on channel as well, because they are pretty much the pinnacle of Blitz for me, is the way you guys play the game.
Yeah, that would be so cool. I hope we get to do that as well.
All right. Until next time, boys and girls, look after yourselves, stay safe on the battlefield, and just be nice to each other. Stop being salty.